Hi, welcome back to another episode of Nature Aquariums TV, where today we have a special guest, Luis Navarro from SeaChem, and he's going to help us scape this UNS 50C today. Now, before we get with our program, please remember to like, share, and subscribe for more videos like this.
So today we are designing a planted aquarium. We're going to go to the steps of properly bringing up a planted aquarium to success. We have a 50 by 50 cube we're going to be using today. We're going to be using materials that were taken from this shelf here. It's going to be ghostwood, firestone, and our substrate is going to be Aquascape by Aquaviter, which is a premium brand of SeaChem. When you look at a planted aquarium, we're going to start with the foundation. We're going to use Aquascape, which is Aquaviter Aquasoil. It's humid based. It will lower your KH and the pH of your water at the beginning, just like any other aquasoil, but it will be much more milder than others. So you can actually break in the tank a lot easier. So we're going to create a slope. I'll say 3 to 6 or 8 inches towards the back is more than enough to have a very nice slope that is going to add depth to your aquarium. So if you were to have everything flat and you look at it, it will be quite boring. So when you create that slope, along with the hardscape and the planting, you will develop depth. So it's very easy to do that just by making this little adjustment. This is Express Aquascaping. We're going to go fast. And I also want to tell you something. What we're doing today, don't do this at home. Professional aquascapers, they sit on hardscape for weeks at a time until they're certain, you know, the rock work and the wood is going to look perfectly to their eyes. So we're using rocks to create a foundation that will keep the driftwood in place. It can float, right? So you can do two things. You can waterlog it, take your time, waterlog it, and get to work, or you can glue it. Today we're going to glue. So what happens, the cotton will bond to the rock, will bond to the wood, solid as a rock. You will actually even see the smoke coming out as a chemical reaction. That means it's bonding, and that will keep it in place. It will not float. So you're anchoring the wood. You're making sure that it's not going to make a mess. So always go back and look what you're doing. So what we're doing here is something that is really easy, and it will be a good idea for you to bring home and actually start working. So we're going to define this space by doing a foreground with ground covers, a middle ground with plants that grow slowly and under the shade. We're going to have a well-defined middle section that's going to contain and define the space, and it will create shade for the Bucephalandras we're using. We're using quite a bit of Bucephalandra. And the back is going to be stem plants. And the stem plants help you a lot when you're a beginner because they grow fast. So they will take a lot of nutrition that otherwise will be lingering in the water, more than likely give you algae. So try to plant as heavily as you can. That's the best thing you can do. That way the plants take off evenly. And when you start doing the maintenance, it's going to grow all together. Right, so I'm going to look for all the contact points. That's very important. And try to hide them as best you can. When you have time at home, you can actually take a pinch of soil and break it with your fingers, and you can actually coat everything with it. What I'm trying to do here, I can just drop it, and that may even look good to your eyes. But guess what? It's completely vertical in its dead center. So that's going to look not so good. So I'm going to try to move it in a way that is not that. Yeah, that's a little too much. Let's stick to that. This is 10-15 minutes worth of work, right? So you're ready to go. I already prepped my plants. I like doing that ahead of time just because it's a lot easier. And as you can see, I have trays, and under I have the plants, right? So let's start planting. You may ask, why is it dry? Well, it's a lot easier for the plants to actually go in and stay in. When you put water, which you can, you break the soil. It just becomes muddy. And I hate that. So I rather plant, and then I start spraying the sections that I'm already done planting. I'm just gonna go in here, get the foreground done, and then we can move to the next. Give about inch and a half gap in between the plants because they will run, they will meet each other. They're gonna close the carpet. The whole idea to have foreground, middle ground, background plants is to add that depth to the tanks. If you are into competition, you may wanna really get into the specific side of aquascaping that you feel more attracted to. There is so many styles. Competing is not for everyone, but if that's your cup of tea, I suggest learn the technique, learn from the best. Rectangular tanks is what you want to use, and the spacing of the tank is going to be used completely. The problem when you do an aquascape, a basic aquascape, a beginner's aquascape, or a nature aquarium aquascape for that matter, is that the structure is usually for you to enjoy at home, and you look at the tank, you can sit in front of it and you can enjoy it. The problem is that when you take a picture, the side panels will play a mirroring effect on you. So that can take points away from you. So if you notice, like the premium aquascapers, they use the entire space, right? And that way they can create something that reduces the mirroring effect, and whatever is left of it, they use it to their benefit because they actually add depth to it by skillfully using the sides. If you really want to have like an all forest look to the tank, you can actually take your time and glue moss to the structure. But this is personal advice. I rather not, for one reason. If you have been keeping plants for a while and know how moss behave, moss is beautiful until it's not. I mean, it will take over like a weed. So if it's your first time, use it very lightly or just don't. You know, that's probably the best thing you can do. Keep in mind where you put them, because once they get going, they'll get going. And the last thing you want is, if you already look at the structure and you've foreseen how it's going to look in the future, and that space that you like so much is going to be covered with plants, it's not going to give it, you know, justice to the idea. So keep that in mind. Now, Pinnatifida, again, even though it's a stem plant, is going to actually start growing on rock and wood eventually. So these I'm going to try to put in behind the structure. That way, when they start coming up, you can actually trim. You will see vertical growth, and usually they will send out a very large stem. So when you see this happening, cut it. Cut it, and that will actually make the plant produce a new shooting, and it will look nice and compacted. All right. Now, just remember, every now and again, you're going to have to spray water. All right, so now we have this section done, and we're going to start using the ferns. So I'm going to lean the leaves to the front, and I'm going to look for all the wedges. Like, you know, every time I see a wedge, I'm going to just try to put them there. And you will see how these start changing just by using a few epiphytic plants. So it will give you the idea where the plants are going to start growing. So now I have the 3, and I'm going to use some Bolbitis as well. I like to have microsorums on the bottom, Bolbitis on the top. These will take longer to grow, but once they get going, they can cover a lot. So just stay on top of your game. The rhizomes, this is probably one of the coolest rhizomes. You will see an actual donut shape unfold, and it follows the wood or the rock, wherever it's going. So it's really easy. You can actually predict where it's going to go, and you can just use something really sharp and cut it there and remove that part of the rhizome to maintain the shape you want. All right, so my idea is to maintain the growth on these, to generate shade on this area, and you're about to see why, and the same here. So I want to have shade here. That is going to cover my bushes there, my bush here, my bush here, and these 2 open spaces in the middle ground. And the reason why is because we're going to start working the back. And for the back, I want to go with cryptocorynes because they're going to look beautiful with the shade here. And they're going to actually hide the transition in between my middle ground to my foreground. Now, ideally, when it comes to rectangular tanks, and it's your first time, you want to make a wall of plants just following the ratio of your aquascaping, but cube is tricky. So you have to be careful. And in this particular case, I want to make sure that the growth stays close to the structure, just so you can actually shape it into a nice defined, bush of plants that you can actually trim, make it look better. So I selected really easy plants. This is Rotella, what we know as Rotella indica or Rotella rotundifolia. It's got a nice, I'll say in between pink and burgundy, depending on the water condition. Look to it is super easy. It grows and takes off like a rocket, and you can actually just trim it time and time over, and it will look really nice. So I like to lay the stems towards the front, especially when you're a beginner, because when you plant them all over the place and you start floating the aquarium, they will float on you. So if you lay them on top of each other, as the water comes up, rises, it will just lift them up. This is Rotella bossi, which is also a very fine leaf, and I'm going to have those on the edges, right? So it's going to be narrow leaves on both sides, And I'm gonna put the broadleaves close to the center so they make more sense. If you have something like big and round on one side and you thin it down as you go, if you have two sections, it will look really nice. But in this particular case, you want to make sure that it's the opposite. So it just looks more natural because the space is compromised and it's a big square. So it's better to go that way. So all the plants we use today, they're like super easy to maintain. So learn your plants, that way you know what you're using. And just like that, we're done. So you're gonna have to be patient. Now we're gonna talk about CO2, which is very important. We're gonna talk about fertilization. So when you have a planted aquarium, you're growing plants. Basic requirements of plants are the following. If you look at the diagram, 79% of the plant requirements is gonna be a carbon source. It can be done in multiple ways. This is a high-tech tank. We're gonna use a pressurized system to a bubble counter and a diffuser. Are you gonna be counting bubbles? No. You need to test your water. If you're not testing your water, you're guessing. If you know the KH you have, you know exactly the amount of CO2 you can inject into your tank, milligrams per liter. So the beauty of having a KH roughly about 4, it will allow you to push over 30 parts per million or milligrams per liter of CO2 dissolved in the water. How do we do this? Well, we have CO2 diffusers. They will actually be placed on the opposite side where the water is going to come out. On this particular type, it's only 17 millimeters around the disc, so it will be more than enough for this tank. So the water is going to come out here, it's going to actually pick up the CO2 and distribute it around the tank. So we were talking about using the CO2 tables. It can be complicated at first, but thank goodness there are pH indicators. A pH checker is as easy as it gets. You fill it up with the reagent. Blue means insufficient, green means you are on point, yellow means you're about to kill everything. So it just tests the pH for you. So this is what it's doing in the long term. Why? Because when you add CO2 to the water, it turns into carbonic acid, right? So this acidifies the water. It will draw the pH of the water. So this is a great tool to have. I will place it probably here on the opposite side just so I can monitor the concentrations of CO2. So remember, CO2 as high as you can on the CO2 tables. You have a range of 3s on the ideal. Keep it as close to the right as possible. And your plants will start actually feeding better. Why? Because the main part of their nutrition is already fulfilled, the carbon. If you're doing a low-tech tank, you can get by using an organic form of carbon, which is Flourish Excel. It's not an algaecide, please don't. A lot of people think that this is designed to kill algae, and it's not. Use it as recommended, and you will be very happy. It's a photosynthetic intermediary. That's what this is. So it's easy to use. Follow the directions, and you'll get great results. So this is yet another source of carbon for your plants. Then we have microelements, macroelements that are very important. Macroelements are the ones after the carbon, NPK. Nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium. In concentration, you can have a beautiful planted tank that it will be well balanced if your concentrations of nitrates are in between 10 to 20 milligrams per liter, your phosphates in between 0.5 to 1, and your potassium from 8 to 15. Potassium is very chemically similar to calcium, so therefore not very easy to test, but you can actually use a calculator and add it with confidence. It's probably the most easy, less dangerous, microelement to use, and the only one that you will have to use equally on a low-tech tank or a high-tech tank. So that's macroelements. Microelements, you have Flourish, which is a combination of a small amount of microelements, amino acid, and vitamins for the plants. Double doses of this per week, it will be more than enough to maintain a low-tech tank or a high-tech tank. Highly concentrated, easy to use, probably one of the best sellers we have. Chiron, which is a ferrous-gluconate form of iron that will be uptake by the plants via stem and leaf. It's so efficient that if you were to test it after using it, you will probably get a big 0. So that's fertilization. Don't complicate your life too much. Get into it, understand it, learn more, because the more you know, the easier and the faster will be for you to find the issues and say, okay, this is what I need, this is what I need to fix. Water changes, very important. At the beginning, every other day, half the tank is probably the best way to start. You can actually do it twice a week, the week after, when you use Aquasolum, that is. You repeat the same on the third week, and you do once every week after that. And because that's how you flush all the excess, and you do proper maintenance, the plants will look always nice and beautiful, and it's just proper keeping of planted aquariums. Thank you very much, guys. Thank you very much for coming. All right.
Thank you so much, guys, for watching. I am super happy that today we had Luis Navarro. He did an excellent job. Luis, thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you for having us.
Man, every time you work, you touch things, you're a master at this. I learned so much just from watching you work on this. And thank you for spending some time with our customers and sharing. And I hope everyone out there in YouTube land found this video insightful. If you like this, please remember to like, share, and subscribe for more videos like this. And as always, we wish you a great day fish keeping, guys. Take care.
Thank you, guys.